Ever wondered how some of the world's most notorious terrorist organizations came to be? You see, it's not a matter of pure evil sprouting from nowhere. These groups, as heinous as their actions may be, are born from a complex web of social, political, and economic conditions. Seeds of discontent are sown in this fertile soil of inequality, injustice, and desperation. These seeds grow into organizations that believe violence is the only means to achieve their ends. Among the many that have risen and fallen throughout history, three stand out for their notoriety and impact: Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and ISIS. Each with its own unique genesis story and dark legacy, these organizations have shaped and been shaped by the world around them, leaving an indelible mark on the pages of history. So let's dive into the dark corners of history and uncover the beginnings of these infamous organizations. First up, the infamous Al-Qaeda. They weren't born overnight, oh no. Our story begins in the late 70s during the Soviet-Afghan War. This conflict was a hotbed for radicalism, and it was here that a young Saudi named Osama bin Laden cut his teeth. He found his calling in the hills and caves of Afghanistan, rallying the Mujahideen against the Soviet forces. Now, bin Laden wasn't just some rebel rouser. He was a man with a vision, a twisted vision, but a vision nonetheless. He dreamt of a global Islamic state, a utopia governed by the strictest interpretation of Sharia law. This ideology would be the bedrock of Al-Qaeda. Over the years, bin Laden, together with his right-hand man, Ayman al-Zawahiri, built Al-Qaeda from the ground up. They recruited, they trained, they planned, all in the shadows, unseen and unheard. They were like the boogeymen of the geopolitical world, their presence felt but never seen. And then in 1998, they stepped into the light. Twin bombings of U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania announced their arrival on the world stage. These attacks were brutal, shocking, and above all, effective. They got the world's attention and they weren't about to let it go. Fast forward to 2001, and we come to the day that would forever be etched in our minds. September 11th. It was a day of horror and disbelief, a day when almost 3,000 lives were lost and the Twin Towers fell. It was the day Al-Qaeda showed the world what they were capable of, and the world has never been the same since. Their actions sparked a global war on terror, a war that is still being fought today. They showed us that terrorism was no longer the domain of lone wolves or small cells, but could be orchestrated on a global scale by a well-funded, well-organized group. And thus, Al-Qaeda emerged from the shadows, forever changing the world's perception of terrorism. Next in line we have Hamas, a notorious terrorist organization. They were born out of conflict, embodying a different breed altogether. Established in the late 1980s during the first Intifada, an uprising against Israeli occupation, Hamas was a product of decades-long tension. This organization, a branch that sprung from the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, was built on the ideological foundation of Palestinian nationalism, mixed with Islamic fundamentalism, a cocktail that proved potent and enduring. Their methods, well, they've been as diverse as they've been controversial. From suicide bombings and rocket attacks to political maneuvering, they've utilized a wide range of strategies to further their cause. On October 7th, they orchestrated a horrific massacre that sent shockwaves around the world, further proving their ruthless determination. It's like they've got a Swiss Army knife of resistance tactics, and they're not afraid to use it. One of their most significant actions, you ask? The year was 2006. The world watched as Hamas, the underdog, clinched victory in the Palestinian legislative elections. It was a Game of Thrones moment, except with ballot boxes and campaign speeches. This victory was a turning point, marking their transition from a militant group to a governing body, at least in the Gaza Strip. However, the tale of Hamas is not just about political victories and resistance tactics. It's also a tale of a society living under blockade, of a people caught in the crossfire of conflict. It's a tale resilience and desperation, of hope and despair. Hamas, like any entity born out of conflict, is complex. They've been labeled a terrorist organization by some, while others see them as freedom fighters. Their narrative, much like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict itself, is fraught with contradictions and controversy. So Hamas, a group forged in the fires of conflict, continues to be a major player in the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Their tale, a testament to the complexities of resistance, serves as a stark reminder that the path to peace is often as convoluted as the conflicts that necessitate it. Last but not least, we have ISIS, a group that took terror to a whole new level. Picture a phoenix rising from the ashes, but instead of a symbol of rebirth and renewal, it's a harbinger of death and destruction. That's ISIS for you, folks. Born from the remnants of Qaeda in Iraq, they quickly spread their wings of terror during the chaos of the Syrian civil war. Unlike their predecessors, ISIS didn't just rely on clandestine operations and covert tactics. No, they took a page out of the book of shock and awe. Public beheadings, mass executions, and cultural vandalism became their calling cards. They wanted the world to watch, and unfortunately the world did. But ISIS didn't just stop at creating a reign of terror. They wanted to build a state, a caliphate where their extremist ideology could reign supreme. And for a while they did, establishing a self-proclaimed caliphate that stretched across large swaths of Iraq and Syria. But building a state needs citizens, right? And that's where their innovative use of the modern world's favorite pastime comes into play. Social media, a tool for connecting with friends, sharing cat videos, and if you're ISIS, recruiting impressionable minds to your cause. They use platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube to spread their propaganda, to glamorize their cause, and to attract followers from around the globe. They use the internet to make terrorism go viral. But like every story, this one also has an end. Their brutal tactics, their flagrant disregard for human life, and their extremist ideology eventually led to their downfall. Local resistance, international coalitions, and relentless attacks have reduced their caliphate to a shadow of its former self. But the scars they've left behind, the lives they've destroyed, the fear they've instilled, they remain. ISIS, a name that sends chills down the spine of many, took terrorism to a horrifying new level. So what legacy have these organizations left behind? It's a question that's as loaded as a political debate on Thanksgiving. In a nutshell, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and ISIS have reshaped the global landscape in ways that are as profound as they are terrifying. They've made the world a stage for their brand of political theater, turning ordinary locations into battlegrounds and everyday people into players in their macabre spectacle. Their impact on global security is as undeniable as a bad tattoo. Security protocols worldwide have been rewritten, with governments investing billions to combat their influence. Politically, they've been catalysts for policy changes, shifting alliances, and diplomatic nightmares faster than a New York minute. As for society, they've forever altered our perception of safety and peace, making us question our neighbors and fear the unknown. They've made us realize that monsters don't just hide under the bed. They walk among us, unseen and unheard until they strike. In the end, the history of these organizations serves as a grim reminder of the dark side of humanity.